Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to take a call in this general debate today. On September the 15th, the Weird and Wacky reality TV show has its finale, and a new leader of the Labour Party will emerge. But not only that, we have only 11 more episodes of this TV show to go. The question is, Mr. Mallard, will contender Grant, contender Shane or contender David be the winner of this contest? The question is, which I'm sure the Labour caucus members are asking themselves, is these contenders of Grant, Shane and David, when one of them does become the leader of the Labour Party, and they've been going around creating these policies on the run, which they're going to have to stand by in the 2014 election, which the caucus hasn't bought into, which the party hasn't bought into, which they haven't costed, which they haven't consulted with the sector. In 2014, when the caucus has to stand united behind this leader, with policies they have not bought into, they have not discussed what is going to happen, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you right now, the caucus will not be united, there'll be infighting, and they will not be government in 2014. There's no way they possibly can be. Not when they're making policy on the run like this, one person in isolation. But it's really interesting when you look at these policies of contender 1, 2 and 3, because these policies do not reflect what New Zealand are concerned about. They do not reflect education. They do not talk about healthcare. They do not talk about crime, law and order. They do not talk about job growth. They do not talk about housing affordability. All the big issues that face New Zealand, contestant 1, 2 and 3 do not even address. That shows you how out of touch the Labour Party is and how out of touch the potential leaders of this Labour Party will be. And we listen to and we read and we hear all the commentary about what these policies are going to look like from the contenders. And the one really interesting policy they all have is creating wealth through legislation. How do you do that? How do you create wealth through legislation? You can't. How do you create wealth? You create it through companies. You create it through growth in the companies, them investing in themselves, them going to markets and emerging companies, companies creating products which are high-tech, high-value, then employing more people in high-growth areas and high-growth jobs that pay a lot of money. That's how you create wealth for a country, not through legislation. So what are some of these policies? Well, why don't I start with Shane Jones? I like his. He's got a couple of really good ones. I like it when he says, I will not write one single cheque the Labour Party cannot cash. I believe in that. I believe that's right. You shouldn't promise something you can't deliver. But then he goes on to say, unfortunately, I'll increase the minimum wage. I don't quite know how that's going to flow out. I'm going to give tax incentives for business to invest in the regions. Yep, we all want to grow businesses. We agree with that. But tax incentives, has he costed that out? I think maybe not. He's going to extend the rail link to Northport. And then he goes, so one thing I do really like about his policy is supporting mining. In his words, he says, I'd rather have the young people of the north with a shovel in their hand and wandering around rather than wandering around picking locks. He says that this should not be a shocking stance from someone in the Labour Party, as it was born from mining. I want to see little brown Kiwis staying at home and not going to Australia. If that means offending the Greens from time to time, such is life. I tell you what, that is about the most sensible thing any of these potential leaders have said yet. And when I look over at the Labour caucus sitting opposite me, the members that are in the House, none are engaged in this conversation. None are jumping up and saying, I support this contender. They're all silently sitting there looking down, embarrassed, knowing that the potential leader has committed has committed that caucus to policies they haven't bought into. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Dr Kennedy Graham.
Mr Speaker, it may not realise it, but